He died yesterday. His son confirmed that he died of natural causes. And many remember Amos's work starring as the older version of Kunta Kinte in the miniseries Roots.
He was once the nation's father on screen. He was once Kunta Kinte, a symbol of strength and freedom. He was once the smile, the steady presence of an entire generation. But behind Hollywood's spotlight was darkness. Behind the audience's laughter were choked sobs. Behind the glory lay a secret so dark it left millions in shock. 45 days. A truth kept hidden. A father accused of abuse by his own daughter. A legend, gone amid controversy, doubt, and tears. John Amos, the man once honored by all of America. But when the curtain of truth is lifted, what you see will not only surprise you, it will bring you to tears. So, what was John Amos's darkest secret? A shocking family secret. The spotlight once shone on John Amos as a symbol of strength and faith. But in 2023, at the age of 83, the world was stunned when his own daughter, Shannon Amos, suddenly declared that her father was the victim of elder abuse. The accusation cut straight into the image of the nation's father that millions of Americans had once adored. The public was bewildered. The press erupted. And society was shaken by a paradox too hard to believe. Could a television legend who had inspired audiences with his portrayal of fatherhood actually be a victim within his own family? The story began when Shannon, a film producer and creative director, made her shocking claim in June 2023. She alleged that her father was not only being neglected, but also financially exploited. Her accusation was not directed at outsiders, but squarely at her own brother, K.C. Amos, a director and John's son. The media quickly seized on the revelations, sparking fierce debate. Had there long been a hidden fracture within the Amos family? John Amos's own response only deepened the confusion. He publicly denied everything, making it clear he was not the victim of any abuse. In a blunt statement, John said, "Our family has differences, but we are still family, and we still love each other." The Los Angeles police opened an investigation, but found no evidence to prove he had been abused or exploited. Yet the denial did not calm the public. Instead, it pushed the family's drama into the spotlight even more forcefully. The feud between his children escalated quickly. Shannon insisted K.C. was manipulating their father using the pretext of care to control his finances and even his artistic legacy. K.C., on the other hand, regularly posted videos of his father claiming he was healthy, happy, and that they were working together on a documentary called America's Dad, a project to honor John Amos's career. The clash turned into a full-blown public family drama, where every statement became fuel for new controversy. For audiences who had once seen John Amos as James Evans Sr., the devoted father protecting his family in good times, the scandal was unbearable. The image of the ideal father was now replaced with a harsh reality. An aging man trapped in a whirlwind of accusations, denials, and battles between his own children. Each detail only sharpened the pain. Media outlets reported a call between John and his lawyer during which he supposedly said his daughter had taken advantage of him. Later, his goddaughter claimed he did not even remember making that statement. The ambiguity left the public divided. Was John truly being manipulated with his memory fading? Or were his children exploiting his name in a battle for control? Born in 1939, John Amos was 83 at the time with declining health and frequent medical checks. Against this backdrop, Shannon's elder abuse claims struck deeper fears. Could a legend really be neglected in his final years? Could a 5-decade career filled with unforgettable roles from Roots 1977 to Coming to America 1988 end in such devastating pain within his own home? The public demanded answers. News reports, talk shows, and social media all cast the spotlight on the Amos family. On one side stood Shannon, insisting she only sought to protect her father from manipulation. On the other stood K.C., declaring he was the one standing by his father, working with him in his later years. Their fight not only fractured the family bond, but also thrust John Amos into the center of a public tragedy, where the world watched every crack in the family laid bare. The saga was more than just an accusation. It was a mirror reflecting the fragility of family ties in the modern age. John Amos, once admired nationwide as America's dad, now had to witness his own children embroiled in a bitter war of words, turning truth and trust into shattered fragments. His story in 2023 was like a tragic television drama, but this time there was no script, no director. This was real life, where a legend in his twilight years had to face the greatest pain of all, division within his own family. And for audiences, those who once wept at his performances, they wept again, but this time not for a character on screen, but for the real John Amos. The heartbreaking secret of death. 45 days hidden. The family accusations of 2023 had not yet faded when an even harsher tragedy struck. Just 1 year later, on August 21st, 2024, John Amos, the man once celebrated by the world, breathed his last at the age of 84. The official cause: heart failure. A seemingly simple, quiet ending, but in reality one veiled in mystery. Because that death was not announced right away, it was kept secret for 45 days. During those 45 days, the world still believed John Amos was alive. No press reports, no colleagues informed, no fans aware. Only the family, or rather only part of the family, held the truth. On October 1st, 2024, his son Casey Amos finally confirmed that his father had been gone for nearly 2 months. The announcement came so late it caused shock, the public was stunned, colleagues blindsided, and his daughter Shannon Amos had not even known. Imagine a daughter learning of her father's death through the media at the same moment as millions of strangers. Shannon cried out in pain, saying she felt devastated, abandoned, and full of questions when she discovered the truth from the news instead of from her own family. For a child, that was not only the grief of losing a parent, it was betrayal, a wound to the soul that may never heal. Questions erupted immediately. Why was the death of a legend hidden? Why was the truth locked away for 45 days? Many believed the silence was no accident but concealment with intent. Just 9 days after his death, John Amos's body had already been cremated. His ashes remained with Casey Amos. Everything happened quietly, quickly, and so privately it felt suspicious. But the heartbreak did not stop there. In John Amos's final hours at the hospital, one chilling detail surfaced. A woman appeared in the emergency room claiming to be his daughter. She spoke to doctors as though she had legal authority. Yet Shannon later insisted, "I am his only daughter." That woman lied. Who was she? How could she appear at such a critical moment, and who allowed her in? To this day, the mystery remains unsolved. The unusual silence combined with unanswered questions pushed the Amos family into yet another storm of conflict. Shannon accused Casey of deliberately hiding their father's death to serve financial interests, from altering wills to insurance benefits. Social media erupted with anger. One of John's relatives even wrote online he died on August 21st, the furious words cut like a scream from the heart. For fans, the incident was a double shock. They had once seen John Amos portray fathers who gave everything for their families. Now, in real life, he had to witness his own family torn apart by disputes. His death, instead of being a moment of loving remembrance, turned into a mystery steeped in suspicion. John Amos had once been America's dad. But in the end, when he left this world, he departed in silence amid family strife. That image was both tragic and ironic. It drew tears not only for the loss itself, but for how truth had been hidden, distorted, and exploited. Picture yourself as a fan on August 21st. You still smiled remembering his role as Cleo McDowell in Coming to America. You could still find his old interviews clips circulating online. But in reality, he was already gone. You only learned the truth 45 days later, when his ashes were already cold in an urn. That feeling was nothing less than a slap to the public's trust. Many American outlets called it a strange silence. Media experts noted that rarely had the death of a major star been kept secret for so long. Typically, Hollywood funerals become public event spaces where fans share grief with the family. But with John Amos, the public only learned when it was far too late. Few deaths in history have stirred such controversy. For John Amos, his passing was not just the end of a glorious life, but the beginning of a chain of unanswered questions. Was the truth buried with his ashes? Was it really just the natural death of an 84-year-old man, or was something darker hidden behind it? And most of all, would his children ever sit together to remember their father in peace instead of turning his legacy into a battlefield? John Amos, a father on screen, a legend in the hearts of viewers, was gone. But the way he was farewelled, the way truth was concealed, turned his death into one of Hollywood's most heartbreaking mysteries. And it is that secret which makes anyone who remembers him unable to hold back their tears. Terrifying behind-the-scenes secrets. If having his death hidden for 45 days was the final wound in John Amos's life, then being fired from the sitcom Good Times at the peak of his career was the deepest scar of his artistic journey. A wound that never healed, but at the same time proof of his unbending integrity, a man who dared to sacrifice glory to defend the truth. Let us return to the 1970s. Good Times, which premiered in 1974, was one of the first sitcoms on American television to portray an African-American family living in Chicago's public housing. As James Evans Sr., John Amos quickly became America's dad, a strong, stern father who nevertheless loved his children dearly. The show reached sky-high ratings, consistently ranking in the national top 10, and was hailed as historic for bringing the everyday life of a black family to screen, something Hollywood had rarely done before. But after only 3 seasons, viewers were shocked when James Evans Sr. was suddenly killed off in an off-screen car accident. No farewell scene, no chance for Amos to say goodbye to the audience. Just heartbreaking news followed by his wife Florida Evans's anguished cry, "Damn, damn, damn," one of television's most haunting moments of the decade. The real reason John Amos was fired, and not because of poor acting, ill fit, or falling ratings. The sole reason he had dared to speak the truth. In interviews years later, Amos revealed that Good Times had no black writers at its start. The scripts, mostly written by white men, created dialogue and situations for a black family. But they rang false. They turned many scenes into shallow jokes and shaped the character JJ, played by Jimmy Walker, into a caricature silly hollow reduced to his catchphrase, "Dynamite," to get laughs. John Amos could not bear it. He protested fiercely, "Black people don't live like that. We don't raise our children like that." To him, James Evans Sr. had to be the image of a real working father, tough, struggling, but dignified. Not a puppet for cheap laughs. But 1970s Hollywood was not ready for such defiance. Amos was branded a troublemaker. He admitted he could be blunt, sometimes too hot-tempered, speaking so directly it angered writers and producers. Then one day Amos received a call from Norman Lear, the legendary producer of Good Times. Lear told him, "The good news is the show has been renewed for 24 more episodes. The bad news is, you won't be in them." That cold announcement ended Amos's journey with Good Times. Audiences at the time never knew the truth. They only saw James Evans Sr. vanish. But for Amos, it was the price of integrity. He chose to lose his job, his fame, rather than accept a distorted image of black life on television. The sudden death of his character shook viewers. Fans mourned, sent letters of protest. His co-star Esther Roll, who played Florida Evans James's wife, was outraged too. Roll bluntly declared, "I cannot keep acting if the father is erased and the children are reduced to comic relief." She left the show, temporarily returning only when the scripts changed. But the wound left an indelible mark. For John Amos, being fired from Good Times was a heavy blow. He was at his peak, beloved across America. But afterward, he was almost stamped as difficult to work with. Many producers hesitated at his name. His career veered off course, and he had to fight twice as hard to prove his talent in later projects. Yet it was from that painful turning point that Amos found another defining role, adult Kunta Kinte, in Roots 1977. Had he not left Good Times, he might never have shown in such a groundbreaking work on black slavery history, a performance that earned him an Emmy nomination. Looking back, the Good Times incident was clear proof of John Amos's character: outspoken, principled, unwilling to bow to falsehood. He once said, "I have no regrets. I'd rather lose my job than betray the truth." That was not just a statement, it was a life philosophy, a choice that shaped his career. Today, when viewers rewatch Good Times, they remember the gentle smile, the stern but loving eyes of James Evans Sr. Few know that behind that model father figure was an actor who paid the real price off screen. An actor who stood up, who dared confront Hollywood itself to protect the dignity of black people on television. And that is what made John Amos's career legendary. He was not just America's dad. He was an emblem of integrity, of pride. A man willing to sacrifice himself to safeguard the dignity of his community. The Good Times story was not merely an industry secret. It was a reminder television glory is not always bright. Behind the audience's laughter, there are hidden battles where artists like John Amos had to risk everything to keep the truth alive. And the price at times was a career, an image, even honor itself. John Amos chose the hardest path. But it was that very path that made him a legend, not only on screen but in real life. Unexpected turning points before stardom. Before becoming America's beloved TV dad, before his name was tied to Good Times or Roots, John Amos's life passed through twists and turns almost too incredible to believe. His journey was not a straight line toward Hollywood, but a series of trials, failures, and painful setbacks that forged the resilience and grit that defined him. Born in 1939 in Newark, New Jersey, John Allen Amos Jr. grew up in a working-class family. As a boy, he never imagined becoming an actor. His dream was sports, the fiery aspiration of American youth in the 1950s. With a strong athletic build and natural stamina, John stood out in high school. He pursued football and boxing as if destined for them. In his 20s, Amos even became a Golden Gloves champion, a prestigious amateur boxing title. His powerful punches won matches in the ring, and he dreamed of one day becoming a professional sports star. But football was his greatest love. After high school, John earned a scholarship to Colorado State University, where he majored in sociology and played guard for the college football team. Off the field, he nurtured his belief that football would take him to the top. In 1964, at age 25, Amos signed as a free agent with the Denver Broncos of the AFL, a precursor to the NFL. It felt like the moment his dream had come true. But just 2 days into training camp, a hamstring injury shattered everything. Amos was cut from the team. His dream ended in an instant like a crushing blow. Refusing to give up, he tried again with semi-pro teams like the Canton Bulldogs, Joliet Explorers, and Norfolk Neptunes. In 1967, he even tried out for the Kansas City Chiefs. But legendary coach Hank Stram delivered the blunt verdict Amos would never forget. "You're not a football player. You're just someone trying to play football." It was painful, but it was the truth. Rejected and cast aside, Amos fell into a difficult chapter of his life. A failed athlete, a young black man in that era, opportunities were scarce. But those struggles hardened his resolve. If he could not conquer the field, he would find another arena. And fate opened a surprising door: acting. John Amos started with small, humble jobs. He worked in advertising, wrote short scripts, and took amateur acting classes. His deep voice, commanding presence, and natural wit soon drew attention. His first big break came when he was cast as Gordie Howard the Weatherman on The Mary Tyler Moore Show, 1970-1973. It was a small role, but enough to showcase his charm and humor. Viewers were surprised a former football player turned into a charismatic TV personality. But Amos was not content with minor roles. He worked tirelessly to hone his craft, pushing forward step by step. His acting career gained momentum, leading him eventually to Good Times and Roots. Looking back, it was the failures in sports that forced him to discover his true calling. Without that hamstring injury in 1964, without those bitter rejections from football teams, the world might never have known John Amos the actor. In his later interviews, Amos often spoke with pride about that period. "Sports taught me discipline, but failure taught me perseverance. That's what allowed me to survive in acting." Indeed, his athletic foundation gave him the strength to endure the brutal realities of Hollywood. The story of John Amos's youth is not just about leaving behind a broken sports dream for success in acting. It is proof of a philosophy. Sometimes failure is the springboard to finding oneself. An injury that seemed career-ending opened the door for John Amos to enter the history of American television. From the Golden Gloves ring to the Denver Broncos field to the television screen, John Amos walked through unexpected crossroads. And those very turning points built the foundation of a legend, a man who stumbled many times, but each time rose stronger until he finally reached the lights of Hollywood. A glorious career and unforgettable roles. Looking back at John Amos's career spanning more than half a century, one cannot remember just one role. He embodied multiple icons, from the steadfast father in Good Times, the proud enslaved man in Roots, to the humorous restaurant owner in Coming to America. Each role, each character was like a puzzle piece, shaping the complete portrait of a television and film legend. After the bitter loss with Good Times, it seemed his career would stall. But perseverance led him to the biggest opportunity of his life, Roots 1977. In this epic miniseries, he played the adult Kunta Kinte, an unbroken symbol of those shackled by slavery. The older Kunta, with eyes full of anger and pride, left a deep mark on audiences. That role not only earned Amos an Emmy nomination, but also made him inseparable from one of television's great turning points. Roots became a cultural phenomenon, moving millions to tears, and Amos was part of its very soul. Yet Amos refused to be boxed into tragic roles. He proved his versatility with a wide range of performances. In Coming to America 1988, he played Cleo McDowell, the cheerful father and owner of a fast food restaurant that parodied McDonald's. From stern father figures in Good Times, Amos transformed into a warm, funny, and lovable dad. The role was so beloved that over 30 years later he reprised it in Coming to America 2021, making audiences laugh and cry with nostalgia. He surprised again by taking on darker roles. In Die Hard 2, 1990, Amos played Major Grant, a military officer who appeared upright, but was actually a traitor. This was a bold shift from America's dad to a cold villain. Audiences were shocked yet impressed because only a truly gifted actor could pivot his image so convincingly. On television, Amos continued to shine. In The West Wing 1999-2004, he portrayed Admiral Percy Fitzwallace, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. With calm authority and commanding presence, Amos turned the character into a highlight of the hit political drama. No longer just a father or enslaved man, he stood as a military leader, proof of his rare range as an actor. Over 50 years, John Amos appeared in nearly every genre: comedy, drama, action, and politics. He acted in more than 50 films and TV series, from 2.5 Men to The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. And the striking fact was, whether the role was big or small, his presence always left a mark. Audiences might forget the details of the plot, but they could never forget Amos's stern gaze, deep voice, or sly smile. His accomplishments were recognized. He received NAACP Image Award nominations, won TV Land Awards, and in 2020 was inducted into the New Jersey Hall of Fame, an honor in the state where his journey began. A young man once cut from the Denver Broncos after just 2 days of training was now enshrined in the history of American arts. It was a journey of perseverance, determination, and unshakable faith. Yet perhaps his greatest legacy was not in awards or filmography, but in the emotions he stirred. He made America laugh in Coming to America, weep in Roots, and reflect on family in Good Times. These roles touched human hearts, transcending race and borders. When audiences look back at John Amos's career, they do not just see an actor. They see a father, a fighter, a villain, a leader, all in one man. He lived many lives through art, and each life carried a lesson and echo. At 84, John Amos passed away, but his glorious career lives on. Every episode, every frame, every line still resonates like fragments of immortal memory. To audiences, John Amos was never just an actor. He was a symbol, a legacy, and proof that failure cannot stop a great man from writing his own story. John Amos lived a life of twists and turns, from an abandoned sports dream to years of proving himself in Hollywood, to roles etched into the hearts of millions. He symbolized strength, fatherhood, resilience against fate. But in the end, when the curtain fell, the dark secrets, family conflicts, the 45-day hidden death, the pain of being misunderstood, made fans weep more than ever. And perhaps it is that raw truth that made John Amos profoundly human, not just a screen legend, but an example of endurance and integrity. He left behind a towering artistic legacy, but more importantly, a lesson in the power of faith, love, and the fragility of family bonds. If you've shed a tear remembering John Amos, let us know in the comments. Share which of his roles touched you the most. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss more behind-the-scenes stories and untold secrets of Hollywood stars. Because behind the spotlight, there are always stories that stir your soul. And the journey of John Amos is the clearest proof of that.
All data, analysis, and commentary in this video are presented based on information available at the time of production. The content is subject to change over time and should not be considered a definitive forecast. There is still so much more to explore: stories of resilience, legacy, and truth. Feel free to dive into some of our top recommended videos now appearing on the screen.